I don't have stencils, everything is freehand, but I do prepare my own stencil liquid. Nowadays actually you can buy it, so probably I will stop doing it. If it's better than mine, I stop doing it for sure. But for a few years that I've been cooking at home with paper sheets, with the stencil paper sheets and alcohol, and then I cook it to evaporate, blah blah blah. And then I use it like a dipping ink to write. So I try to spend more time on creating the piece and spending more time freehanding, so I can adapt to that person's arm, to that person's body, because when everything is drawn, all I need is to make a decent line and a decent black. It's actually technically very simple as in tattooing it. Hi, I'm Gordo Letters. I'm here in Nepal, and I'm an on-the-road tattoo artist doing abstract calligraphy. If you want to follow my work, check Gordo Letters on Instagram. Well, first of all, I always been painting or drawing since I remember as a kid. And the same memories I have as being very young and going in the train with my grandma to the village. And I was drawing. I never draw the landscape or a face. I draw shapes. I call it an alien or a spaceship. But it was always abstract shapes. My first painting, I was probably 11, 12, that I have it at home. There was just a bunch of shapes. And at 13, I started doing graffiti. So I always had this background of arts. As a kid, I wanted to be an architect or a designer, something that was related to arts, and I could paint.
How did sort of tattooing happen to you at the first place? Like, how did you get introduced to it? And then how did that gradually change into you becoming a tattoo artist?
To be honest, it was very fast. I was actually introduced by one of my best friends who we were both studying at the time, and we were both not studying at the time. We were enjoying and having fun and not happy with what we were doing, not studying at all. And this is the guy who was like, hey man, I'm really digging tattooing. I think this is what I want to do. And it was funny, but it clicked. I was like, wait, I'm an artist, I paint. I never thought about tattooing, right? So we actually started the journey almost together. The only difference would be he got the shop first. But a few months after, he got me into the same shop. And we were both apprentices. And I still learned a lot from him. And that's how I started tattooing at a biker shop in my local town. Doing a little bit of everything, commercial work or whatever you want to call it, tribal, Japanese, all the styles, a little bit of black and gray. But as my background was lettering in graffiti, I started to be more interested in doing Chicano style. And this since the first year, I thought like, hey, I can make a difference if I do lettering. If I do a skull, there's a lot of guys going to do a skull better than me, because I don't enjoy drawing skulls as much as I enjoy drawing letters. So that's where I can focus and make a difference. At the time, I wanted to buy a tool for Chicano writing, which is a specific calligraphy nib, but I bought a nib for a different type of letter, which is black letter. And that reminded me a lot of the tagging and the graffiti, so I was like, oh, this is even more what I like to do. So I started practicing this, not really thinking that I would tattoo it, but just practicing. I enjoy B's and E's a lot. B and E is probably the like most of my work is a B's and D's or based on that. Mostly I try not to write or finish anything that I start, in the sense. And if someone wants no letter and no name, I don't feel good in putting a letter on this person's body. So, for example, I start doing an E as an E in my calligraphy. Every letter in my calligraphy is very complex. It's not just 2 lines or 3. I start doing an E, but then I don't finish it. And maybe I start the S on the end of the E. So then it's not a letter, it's actually just a weird character. I use definitely a little bit of everything that I get to know. Some of things I get to know better than others. Some of things, for example, I would say, to be very fair, that roof behind the camera, influences my work a lot more than the Tibetan calligraphy. You know, or maybe the other type of arts, or So what I mean with this is, instead of basing my work in calligraphy, which is what most of calligraphy artists do, which makes sense, right? You do calligraphy, you get inspired by other calligraphy. I prefer to get inspired by architecture or nature, uh, because this way nobody knows who I'm copying. I am copying someone. I'm copying the architect who did that roof, but then nobody knows. Nobody associates. I used to trace those kind of roofs with tracing paper, and then put another tracing paper on top, or just take a photocopy and practice my calligraphy with those shapes. So this way is like where you get this from, or an octopus. A nice photo of an octopus, or just the movements of the octopus, or the movements of seaweed, and that's what I'm gonna get. In the past, I studied a lot of different types of traditional calligraphy, from Japanese to Sanskrit, but I would say nowadays I prefer this, and I get away from the calligraphy. As a lot of people always say, oh, you should try this needle because you can write it like you do on paper. But no, when I tattoo, I think basically as a tribal. I like solid bold lines and solid black. Every now and then I do like some brush stroke, but I have to say I like to do my own stroke from the metal nibs, but it's very different. It's still solid, maybe have a few splatters and lines.
Even your broader strokes are quite solid in nature. Yeah,
I'm more like a tribal tattooer, technically, than calligraphy. You know, I'm not fine and delicate like most of calligraphy is and should be. I'm very fortunate, and most of my customers actually come with an open mind. Some people have small details then when they ask me, placement of course, and they give me like references already of my work, you know, like, hey, I really like when you go big and bold, or I like when it's delicate and thin. But I would say most of them, they just say like, hey, I want to feel from here to there, or from here to there. Of course there's small details like I want it negative or positive, or I want to write the word or not, but it's very, I do everything on the moment.
absolutely.
Except if it's a very large piece, I can ask for a photo and practice. But as I practice every day, or regularly, hopefully, I can keep doing this. And the person can also feel, I had customers who didn't felt the piece that I draw and know how I'm feeling, so they go home and come back next year or in a few months or whenever I'm back. And in this way, the people also feel comfortable. Okay, if I'm not happy, if I don't feel this piece, we don't have to do it. Fortunately, not happen every day. Yeah? Mostly people like it, and I've done like a back piece, starting right out of the blue. No, I build coil machines, and I prefer coil machines, no doubt. I use rotaries too. I don't have much, but as I told you, I don't travel with tattoo machines.
For how long have you been building
Tattoo
coils?
machines? I don't know, 4 or 5.
4 or 5 years.
No, 5 is too. No, 4 or 5 years is
5
fair.
years.
Yeah, I don't have much time to build them. Recently, I started welding needles.
Because
too.
you're also traveling all the time as
I'm
well.
traveling all the time. Yeah. So it makes it hard. The only thing the only reason I can actually do it is because the economy in Portugal is very cheap. So I can actually afford to have a space there that I use every now and then. Every 3 months, I have a week or 2 there where I try to build a machine or I paint some canvas. And that's what I like to do, is to do my own tools. I create also my tools for calligraphy. I stretch my own canvas. I build my own frames. I like to create my inks. I like this. This is what keeps me motivated, even in tattooing.
How important is this organic? Is this organic nature of the process that you're putting yourself into for your art?
That's the whole reason I'm here. Is the using my hands, having ink on my hands all the time. This is what I enjoy, having my clothes with ink and touching stuff. I studied graphic design for a few years, and it's just not for me. I don't like to use computers. I like to use brushes. So this is actually the most important part. That's why I love freehand so much. Is because it's what it's. Again, I'm not better than anybody. It's just what it's supposed for me to do. To write it on people, to paint it on people, and then tattoo it, and have a good connection. Make the person feels good. Doesn't have to be the same style as I am. Don't have to have the same music. You can be very, very different. And my friends are very different personalities. But I like to feel a connection.
When you sort of take a step back from the tattooing and the tattooing process, and just from a personal level, uh, what is the biggest satisfaction that you take out of tattooing?
The biggest satisfaction I take out of tattooing. Like, you mean the act or my job,
Uh,
my profession, my
Whether you look at
lifestyle?
it as an act or a
Because if I had to say, it
profession
would
or
be my lifestyle. The
yeah,
people I've met, the people I've met, what it made me able to travel, what it made me to achieve way more than I've ever thought. And I know if I was only painting, I wouldn't make that big of a difference. People always complain that tattoo business is very competitive nowadays, and try to sell sculpture, try to sell paintings. You're gonna see it's way complicated. Photographers, people say, oh, everybody's a tattooer nowadays.
yeah,
So I talk with a designer or a photographer. Everybody's doing photography nowadays with phones. And I accomplished something in tattooing that gives me this possibility of being right here, right now. And this is amazing. This is tattooing for me,
this
right?
year.
So that's I think that's how I could answer you.